Hey there patrons, we're going to get right into it today. Today I'm going to be showing you some airbrushing tricks and some basics for hair punching, which is necessary for silicone masks, which is what this is, part of my new experiments into what I'm calling hybrid masks, which are half fursuit and half silicone mask. They can be worn as a prosthetic by applying Prozaid around the eyes. As you can see, this one has some very rudimentary teeth in there. They may be replaced later on with something fancier. Unfortunately, I recorded this with my microphone muted, so I'm having to do a voiceover now. So I'm sorry if this doesn't quite fit what my hands are doing. I'm talking about painting silicone here, where we're going to be airbrushing with acrylic paints, whereas most of what I've painted the silicone with, there are silicone paints, and I have pre-painted the prosthetic parts, as acrylic paint will never stick to silicone, it'll wipe right off. And I just wanted to use the airbrush once today without having to clean it out and getting it all gummed up with silicone paint, so I will be covering pre-painting prosthetics at another time. Here I'm going over how this is a prosthetic, and once I have Prozaid, which is very similar to spirit gum, Prozaided, I suppose, this prosthetic to my face, there will be a whole lot of movement around the eyes, the cheeks, the mouth, the lower jaw. Like, you'll be able to get a good smile, some eye wrinkles. The cheek movement is very good. I even managed to get a little bit of nose movement, which is fantastic. The prosthetic itself was adhered to a balaclava using silicone, as only silicone sticks to silicone. And over there you can see the pre-made prosthetic in brown. Some of the tools we'll be needing today are some matching fur. The little black thing in my hand is a hair punch, which I made myself, as they are not commercially available. That is just a lump of epoxy sculpt with a sewing needle in the end, with the eye hole facing outwards, and I used a sharp pair of pliers to cut it in half, so it's like a little U shape, which you use to catch on the fur, and then push it right into the silicone, which is very soft, and the needle is very sharp. So it goes right in, and it goes in pretty deep, so you get a lot of grip and not a lot of hair falling out or anything. It's a very secure method of applying hair to a prosthetic. All of the hair on the nose was hair punched in, as you can see. I wanted it to have a sparser look than the rest of the mask. The edges around the mask there, you can see, are punched in. We're going to get a little bit of hair, so we can start hair punching here. Just clip it straight off your faux fur. And this one has a pretty dense underpile, so what you need to do is grab the tips of the fur very firmly, and then just gently pull the dense underpile off. And then what you'll need to do is you want to spread it out in your fingers. Make it as thin as possible, like one or two hair, like a row of one or two hairs. And then you're going to lay it straight on the mask. Here we go. I'm spreading it out as thinly as possible, and the less hairs per hole punch, the more realistic it will look, especially when you do it in layers. As you can see around the edge of the mask right now, it kind of looks a little bit like bad hair plugs in places. That's because I didn't do a couple of layers there. Those are just the bulk punches, as I like to call them. They have many hairs per punch, and they are used to cover up the edge of where your fabric meets your silicone, where there's a very ugly edge. And now to beautify it up a bit, we're going to use single hairs per punch, which is very time consuming. Just punching around the edge of this mask took something like 2 hours, not including the nose or the jaw. So I'm not going to do the whole thing for you, this is just for demonstration purposes. So here I'm showing you that you want to go with the direction that you want your fur to poke out. If you poke straight in at a 90-degree angle with the skin, you're going to have fur that pokes straight out, and it's going to look highly unnatural. You want to poke it in at an angle that would be natural for the fur to come out of. So in this case, I want my fur to come out at like a 25-degree angle, so that's what I'm poking in at. Usually you can get the fur to just stay by sticking it on there with your thumb, but you can hold it down if you feel a little better about that. With how rickety my head form is, I'd rather hold the head in place than the fur, as this is a demo head. Now you can see that I'm just poking in 1 or 2 hairs at a time, and what you end up with is you get a much smoother transition, like on this side, which is mostly done. It's much less hair plug looking. You get a lot more natural look than the other side, which is only like got 3 layers done. So now what we're gonna do, I have no idea. I don't remember what I did at this point in the video. Airbrushing, right. Alright, so a couple of tricks with airbrushing. We're gonna use 2 colors to make a gradient today. Firstly, I'm using an artist's airbrush, which tend to have small brush marks, like a very fine size of the paint that comes out. A trick you can do to get more coverage or a larger brush mark with some models is there's this long needle in it, and you can pull the needle back a little bit, and what that does is it allows more paint to escape, which you'll get a couple of splatters, but like you can see here, you see the needle coming in and going out by my adjusting it. So I'm going to pull it back about 50%, and then I'll get the coverage that I'm interested in getting. Feel free to use your hand to test your needle. It's not going to hurt anything. So we're just going to lightly apply this very, very light gray all the way around the face. And one important thing you want to remember is with fur and airbrushes, use your hand to hold the fur down sometimes, because the air is going to just send it all over the damn place. So, like here, I'm going to hold it down with my fingers just so that I can get it to look good and not crazy tie-dye. Now you can spray directly down on fur, it's not going to hurt it, but you'll get some really weird color patterns that may not be desirable for your particular project. Here I'm going over the fur on the bridge of the nose, and you can see it's very, very light gray. Like, this is just to give it a kind of natural look without taking away the divide between it being a stark white and gray face. I've got a little bit more dark gray, and we're going to do a gradient under the lips, because I like it when there's a little bit of dark paint underneath the lips. I think it adds to the expression of the mask, and a lot of animals have staining around that area, so it's very realistic. Just refilling my paint here a little bit. And don't worry about getting it on your mask. Like, if you get it on silicone, it's going to wipe right off. Now, of course, you don't ever want to do any permanent painting on silicone with acrylic paint. But if you're at a convention and you need to paint your silicone in a pinch, like there's a little repair job, or you missed a spot on your black or something, and you're about to go into a contest, by all means, it'll stay on there for an hour, but it'll flake off shortly thereafter. So, not something you want to do for clients or costumes in general. It's just kind of an emergency fix. Always have your brush handy. When you're airbrushing, especially on fur, brushing it out as you go, just very, very gently, is going to prevent it from getting all clumpy and hard. And you'll retain at least some of the softness of the fur, as well as you're not going to have those hard clumps that will look dreadfully unrealistic. Yes, I'm talking here about using silicone paint. You can buy pre-made silicone paint, of course, Psycho Paint from Smooth On, for example. But if you do it yourself, you have to mix silicone with naphthalene, and if you do opt to mix silicone paint yourself, this is my official warning. Naphthalene is not it's not fake poisonous. It's not vaguely poisonous, like I'll be okay not wearing my respirator a couple of times with Super 77. It's oops, I died because I was too stupid to take it outside because I didn't listen to Artslave and she warned me. So I'm telling you, if you mix your own silicone paint, take it outside. Like, seriously, don't do the, well, it's well ventilated. Yeah, one window and a fan is not well ventilated. You gotta do it outside and have your respirator on. All right, that's my warning. Um, Here you can see just how easily this stuff dabs off, and it doesn't dab off of the fur at all because it adheres to the fur rather well. So you don't have to worry about being rough with it or anything. Just cleaning out some of the dribbles from the lips and such. Now the prosthetic was originally two pieces, and once it was adhered to the balaclava, I used a little bit of scumble, which is to say manually applied silicone, and some matte powder to affix the top and lower jaw together. And given that it is mounted on balaclava, it's already naturally stretchy, so the corners of the mouth move very, very well without tearing. Needless to say, they'll need a little bit of upkeep, but here I've loaded my brush with some cadet gray directly on top of the light gray. Normally you'd want to clean out your reservoir and before putting a new paint in, but I'm doing what's called a live gradient, which is to say the colors will mix in the chamber of the brush. So you'll get about 10 seconds of really nice gradient. So this is a bit of an advanced technique. I'm totally going to mess this up because I bring it a little too far down close to my hand, but fortunately it's easily fixable. You can see it goes from being light gray to the same color as the face there, and then I'm going to clear that up a little bit, just muddle the edges by brushing it a bit, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of OxyClean to kind of gradiate that harsh line that I made with the gray up against my hand into the white. And OxyClean is fantastic. It'll take airbrush paint out of anything, and just a tiny bit soaked into a paper towel and just blot it on there, and you'll get it'll clean up really nice, and you can blend it back in easily. And if I take too much off, airbrushing is great because you can just put it back on. It's no big deal. And now we should have the dark gray in there, which is just going to be for just under the jaw, or the lips there. And it kind of darkens the area up a little bit. He's starting to look rather handsome now, I think. Yeah. Sometimes a little bit goes a long way. Just a little bit of light gray really has started to make this thing pop. Don't hesitate to blow on your paint to make sure that it dries a little bit while you brush it. And here we go, he's just about done. I'm going to give him a little bit more cleaning. And then the very last thing I think we're going to go into is ear detail. Or not ear detail specifically, that will be this example, but just making a little bit of detail pop out. And I put a lot of extra shape on the insides of the ears, but you can't really tell right now when you're viewing it from the side, as it's all the same kind of pink, and the very bright white is kind of distracting. So what we're going to do is, because it's white, we're going to use a darker color, and we're not going to add too much, we're just going to add a little bit to the inside of the ear, and that'll make this whole thing come together, I think.